The bar on Vorin. 9 was not a place anyone would call quiet, but it was quiet enough for someone like Marcus. The hum of hovering vehicles outside, the chatter of countless alien tongues, and the clatter of glasses created a constant background noise that most people ignored. For Marcus, it was perfect. He moved behind the counter with smooth, practiced motions, sliding drinks across the polished surface, wiping down stains before anyone noticed them, and offering a polite nod to anyone who met his gaze. His eyes, calm and watchful, missed nothing. Alien patrons crowded the room. Tall, insect-like beings with chittering voices huddled in one corner, sharing glowing data slates. A group of reptilian traders leaned over a table, counting tiny metallic spheres that hummed faintly. A pair of furry, four-armed creatures argued over the price of a drink while balancing cups on each paw, and everywhere alien guards loomed. They were large, armored, and heavily armed, their weapons resting casually at their sides. To them, Marcus was just another human, small, quiet, and unthreatening. They ignored him completely. Marcus didn't mind. He preferred it that way. It allowed him to observe without being observed. Every flicker of movement, every raised voice, every subtle exchange of glances and gestures told him something. He didn't need to know their languages perfectly. His eyes and ears could read behavior like an open book. He poured a drink for a tall, blue-skinned alien with 4 eyes and a long, narrow neck. The alien reached out with a clawed hand, and Marcus set the glass down precisely in the middle of its palm. "Careful," Marcus said softly in the universal trade language. "Don't spill. It's strong enough to singe a tail." The alien gave a dry, humorless laugh and sipped. "You humans are careful with your words, but not always with your hands," it said. Its eyes scanned the room nervously. "Trouble bruised tonight," Marcus only smiled faintly. He had heard that before, many times. Trouble had a way of finding him, even when he didn't want it. But for now, the bar remained calm, the chaos contained within the usual noise. That was how Marcus liked it. A calm surface hiding hidden currents below, just like the calm eyes of a predator. A group of rowdy smugglers stumbled in from the outer docking bays. Their clothing was mismatched, their armor patched together, and their weapons old but deadly. They laughed loudly, bumping into tables and knocking over drinks. The alien guards glanced their way, shrugged, and returned to their posts. To the guards, the humans were minor nuisances hardly worth attention. Marcus's eyes followed them, quiet but alert. The smugglers were careless, but they had skill. Their leader, a tall man with a scar running down his cheek, moved with a confidence that came from years of survival in the galaxy's harshest sectors. He ordered drinks for his crew in a loud, rough voice, tipping the bartender without a word. Marcus accepted the credit slips with a polite nod, not flinching at the intimidation in the man's tone. The bar continued its rhythm. Glasses clinked, voices rose and fell, and the smell of alien spices mixed with the faint tang of electricity from the nearby power grids. Marcus moved among it all, quiet and unnoticed, but always aware. He noticed the way one of the guards twitched, a subtle shift in weight, a hand brushing against the hilt of a weapon. Something was coming, and Marcus didn't need words to know it. He didn't move, didn't react beyond the casual motions of a bartender, but he noted it. The guard's tension, the subtle warning signs among the smugglers, the pattern of behavior. It all fit together like pieces of a puzzle only he could see. A child alien, no taller than a human toddler but with delicate shimmering wings, stumbled into the bar. Its eyes were wide with fear, and it clutched a small metallic cube to its chest. Behind it, one of the smugglers reached out, and Marcus's reflexes took over before thought even entered his mind. With one fluid motion, he stepped from behind the counter. In a blur, he intercepted the smuggler's grasp. The man yelped in surprise as Marcus twisted his arm, disarming him and sending the weapon clattering across the floor. The child's wings fluttered wildly, and the cube dropped, but Marcus caught it before it hit the ground. The alien guards froze, mouths open, staring at a human handling a threat faster than they could even react. Marcus didn't speak. He returned the child to the center of the bar, crouching slightly to meet its gaze. "You're safe now," he said softly. His voice was calm, almost hypnotic, and the child's fear began to fade. The cube, still warm in his hands, hummed faintly, as though recognizing a friend. The smugglers scrambled back, their confidence shattered. They had expected a human to be weak, easy to intimidate. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Marcus didn't need to fight them further. A few precise movements, a well-placed kick, and the leader sprawled across the floor, groaning. His crew froze, stunned, and slowly backed toward the door, understanding without a word that the fight was over. The bar fell silent for a moment. Patrons stared. Alien guards looked around, bewildered, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Marcus wiped his hands on a towel, returned to the counter, and continued polishing glasses as if nothing had occurred. His calmness was a statement in itself. The galaxy might have forgotten humans, or dismissed them as weak, but Marcus was a living reminder that one human could change the course of events without anyone even realizing it. "Who is he?" One of the insect-like patrons whispered to another, voice trembling. "Some say he was a warrior on Earth," the other replied. "A human who fought wars across galaxies." Entire fleets fell before him. Marcus didn't respond. He kept his eyes forward, focused on the glass in his hands. He had long ago learned that mystery was as powerful as any weapon. Let them speculate. Let them fear and admire in equal measure. It kept him safe. Yet he knew this peace would not last. Something was coming, something bigger than drunken smugglers and nervous guards. The subtle tension he had felt earlier had not vanished. The hum of the room, the way the air seemed slightly heavier, the faint vibrations in the floor, all signs pointing to a storm brewing beyond the bar doors. He glanced at the cube the child had dropped. It was a small thing, metallic and unassuming, yet its energy signature was unique. A rare energy crystal, coveted across star systems for its ability to power ships, weapons, and even entire colonies. Whoever had been pursuing the child wanted it badly, and Marcus now realized that he would be drawn into the conflict whether he liked it or not. He leaned against the counter, observing. His hands moved automatically, preparing drinks, wiping tables, arranging glasses. But his mind was elsewhere. Strategy, movement, anticipation. Every action, every possible threat he considered. He had spent years perfecting this discipline, training for battles that now seemed like echoes in memory. Yet here, in a quiet bar on Vorin 9, it was still alive in him, waiting. The alien guards continued to ignore him, but Marcus knew better. In time, they would recognize the danger, the skill, the human who could single-handedly dismantle threats they struggled to contain. They did not yet understand that this quiet bartender had once been the most feared warrior Earth had ever produced. The child's eyes met his, wide and curious. Marcus offered a faint smile, almost imperceptible. In that small moment, he saw hope. The kind of hope that motivated warriors to protect, not destroy. Perhaps this battle, whatever it was about to become, could be different. Perhaps he could fight and still keep something precious safe. Outside, the neon lights of the spaceport reflected off the rain-slicked streets. Ships landed and took off, carrying goods, weapons, and secrets across the stars. Somewhere out there, those who sought the rare crystal were gathering, unaware that Marcus had already anticipated their moves. They thought him weak, an unimportant bartender in a far-off bar. They had no idea. The bar door swung open again, and a cold gust of wind brought in the smell of burning metal and ozone. Marcus's head tilted slightly. New arrivals, strangers, their aura radiating threat, His hand brushed against the counter, fingers brushing the cool metal of a concealed weapon hidden beneath. A faint smile touched his lips. Let them come. He had fought worse, survived worse, and now he was ready to remind the galaxy exactly what humans could do. And as he returned to pouring a drink, steady and precise, the patrons whispered among themselves. The quiet bartender, the unassuming human, had become a story, a legend, even if no one knew his name. The alien guards still ignored him, but Marcus knew better. Soon they would learn. Soon they would understand the power hidden behind calm eyes and steady hands. For now, though, he waited. Calm, patient, and ready. The storm was coming, and Marcus would be at the center of it, as he always had been. The air outside the bar had changed. The neon lights reflecting on the wet streets flickered as a convoy of black ships landed at the far end of the spaceport. Their engines hummed low, a menacing vibration that rattled the windows of the bar. Marcus didn't flinch. He had learned long ago that fear was for those who could not predict the storm. He studied the ships, noting the patterns of landing lights, the armored plating, and the small insignia that marked them as the fleet of a notorious interstellar gang known as the Red Claw Syndicate. Inside the bar, the patrons began to murmur nervously. The smugglers from earlier had fled, leaving empty chairs and whispered rumors. Alien guards straightened in their armor, sensing tension but unable to identify its source. Marcus continued to work behind the counter, but his movements carried a weight that went unnoticed by most. He poured drinks in exact measures, wiped tables in sweeping arcs, and adjusted the placement of glassware with subtle precision. Every action was a cover, a way to remain calm while preparing for what was coming. A new figure entered the bar, tall and sleek, with a glint of metal covering one side of its face. Its single visible eye scanned the room, locking onto Marcus. It was Xylar, a bounty hunter whose reputation stretched across 5 star systems. He had tracked Marcus's movements for weeks, following rumors, whispers, and scattered reports of the human who moved like a predator, yet appeared harmless. Xylar's presence was like a shadow falling over the room, and the tension was immediate. Marcus glanced up, meeting the hunter's gaze without hesitation. He didn't move, didn't speak. His calm presence was more intimidating than any weapon. Alien patrons glanced at him nervously, sensing something they couldn't name. The humming of the city outside faded into the background as Marcus assessed Xylar and his subtle movements. Xylar stepped forward, placing a small device on the bar that projected a holographic image of Marcus in combat. The patrons gasped. They had seen him defend the child, but this was something else entirely. A record of destruction. Battles fought across space. Entire fleets annihilated. The image flickered, showing Marcus leading squads of soldiers, striking with precision and power, his reputation as Earth's most feared warrior now undeniable. Marcus's eyes narrowed slightly, but he remained composed. He knew the display was meant to intimidate, to force him out of hiding. But Marcus had survived worse. He had fought enemies who sought entire galaxies, and he had learned to anticipate threats before they arrived. Xylar underestimated him, assuming a human bartender could not be a formidable opponent. That mistake would cost the hunter. The bar's doors shuddered as the first wave of Red Claw Syndicate soldiers entered. Their armor glinted under the neon lights, their weapons humming with deadly energy. Alien patrons screamed and ducked under tables, scattering as the soldiers spread across the room. The alien guards, though heavily armed, hesitated. They had not faced an enemy this precise, this skilled. Marcus observed their hesitation with quiet satisfaction. He stepped forward, moving among the tables with silent grace. His hand brushed against a concealed blade beneath the counter, but he did not draw it immediately. Instead, he studied the soldiers, noting their armor gaps, their movement patterns, and the subtle signals between them. Every detail mattered. Every second counted. A soldier lunged toward Marcus, expecting to overwhelm him with sheer strength. Marcus shifted, a blur of motion using the man's momentum against him. A precise strike to the shoulder sent the soldier crashing into a table, knocking over glasses and drinks in a spectacular display. Another soldier moved in from the left, and Marcus intercepted with a spinning kick that disarmed him and sent him sprawling. The bar erupted into chaos. Yet Marcus's movements were not just defensive. They were calculated, tactical. He used the environment to his advantage, toppling tables to create barriers, knocking over stools to trip enemies, and pushing crates to block paths. Alien patrons screamed and fled, some hiding under tables, others bolting for the exit. The alien guards finally reacted, but Marcus anticipated them as well. He sidestepped, dodged, and redirected attacks with minimal effort, leaving the guards stunned and confused. Xylar watched, his single eye narrowing. He had expected a human who could fight, but not someone who could dominate an entire room with such efficiency. The bounty hunter moved closer, drawing a pair of energy pistols and firing with deadly accuracy. Marcus ducked and rolled, sliding behind the bar. He grabbed a bottle, swinging it with perfect timing to knock the pistols from Xylar's hands. The glass shattered, sparks flying. But Marcus remained unscathed. The child from earlier peeked from behind a corner, eyes wide. Marcus noticed and nodded subtly. "Stay down," he whispered. Though the child could not understand him completely, it was enough. A small alien ducked, watching in awe as Marcus moved like a force of nature. One by one, the Red Claw soldiers fell, either incapacitated or disarmed. The alien guards tried to step in, but Marcus used them as unwitting allies, redirecting their movements to trap enemies or block paths. His strategy was flawless. Each action flowed into the next without pause. He was not just fighting, he was orchestrating a symphony of defense and control. Xylar, realizing the tide was turning, activated a small device on his belt. A pulse of energy shot across the bar, knocking several tables and sending patrons sprawling. Marcus braced himself, using his reflexes to absorb the shock without losing balance. He seized the moment, closing the distance between himself and Xylar. With a precise strike, he disarmed the hunter and pressed him against the bar, a hand on Xylar's throat, eyes blazing with controlled fury. "You underestimated me," Marcus said, voice calm but deadly. "You should have left me alone," Xylar struggled, but Marcus's strength and skill were overwhelming. The hunter's weapons clattered to the floor, and the remaining soldiers, seeing their leader defeated, fled in panic. The bar fell silent, except for the hum of the city outside and the soft clatter of broken glass. Patrons slowly emerged from hiding, staring at Marcus with a mixture of fear, awe, and respect. Marcus straightened, adjusting his shirt and returning to his bartender's calm composure. He wiped a streak of blood from a soldier's minor wound from the floor, a small act that contrasted sharply with the destruction moments before. Alien guards approached cautiously, still unsure how to react. Marcus met their gaze, unflinching. "He's gone," he said simply. "Leave it at that." The child ran to him, clutching the energy crystal. Marcus knelt, accepting the cube and examining it carefully. Its energy signature was intact, a rare and powerful artifact that could tip the balance of power in the galaxy. He tucked it safely beneath the counter, hidden from view. Whispers spread among the patrons. "That human, he is not what he seems." Marcus returned to his duties, pouring drinks and arranging tables as if nothing had happened. But inside, he was already planning. The Red Claw Syndicate would not accept defeat quietly. They would regroup, bring reinforcements, and seek revenge. And beyond them, other factions in the galaxy had already taken note of the human who could single-handedly decimate soldiers, outsmart bounty hunters, and control chaos with ease. He moved with quiet efficiency, serving drinks to aliens who stared nervously at him, some with admiration, some with fear. The child watched from a corner, safe but curious, sensing the power behind the calm exterior. Marcus allowed himself a brief glance toward the door. The storm was far from over. The galaxy was beginning to notice, and soon, everyone would know the truth about the bartender on Vorin. 9. For now, though, the bar remained intact. Patrons whispered tales of the human warrior, of his calm eyes and precise movements. Alien guards who had once ignored him now watched more carefully, wary of the quiet man behind the counter. Marcus, however, remained focused on the small details: the placement of glasses, the angle of the bar's lighting, the subtle tension in the room. Every moment was preparation. Every glance, every sound, every movement mattered. Night fell over the spaceport, and the neon lights cast long shadows across the wet streets. Outside, ships landed and took off, unaware of the small battle that had shifted the balance of power in this corner of the galaxy. Inside, Marcus continued his work, calm and vigilant. He had faced armies, survived ambushes, and mastered countless forms of combat. Nothing outside the bar could surprise him. But he knew better than to underestimate the galaxy's appetite for conflict. The crystal was a prize, and he had it. Whoever came next would find him ready, waiting, and impossible to ignore. The child slept peacefully in a small alcove, and Marcus allowed himself a brief moment of relief. Protection was temporary, but it mattered. For now, this bar, these patrons, and this small piece of the galaxy were his responsibility. And so he waited, behind the counter, pouring drinks, wiping tables, and observing the subtle movements around him. The alien guards still watched cautiously, the patrons whispered in awe, and the neon lights reflected off the polished surfaces of the bar. Marcus remained calm, patient, and ready, because the galaxy would come for him, and when it did, Marcus would be prepared. The quiet of the bar was gone. Rumors of the human warrior spread faster than fire across the stars. By now, Marcus knew that his calm, unnoticed life behind the counter was over. The Red Claw Syndicate would regroup. Xylar would return with new allies. And beyond them, others, warlords, bounty hunters, and intelligence agents, were moving, all drawn by the stories of a single human capable of feats no alien had ever believed possible. Marcus wiped a glass with deliberate care, listening to the low hum of conversation and the occasional hiss of alien languages. He had always worked like this, observing first, acting second, but now he had no choice but to act. The first warning came in the form of a soft vibration under the floor. Not the tremor of a ship landing, but the almost imperceptible pulse of energy moving beneath the bar itself. Someone, or something, was approaching, and Marcus's instincts told him it was not a casual visitor. The bar doors slid open with a hiss, and a group of figures entered. They moved with military precision, their armor polished, weapons gleaming and eyes scanning every corner. Alien guards stepped forward, but Marcus saw the hesitation in their stance. Even they could sense the threat was greater than anything they had faced. Marcus did not move from behind the bar, though his hands flexed slightly, ready to spring into action. Xylar appeared at the head of the group, his cybernetic eye glinting in the neon lights. "I warned you," he said, voice calm but edged with menace. "You cannot hide forever, Marcus. The galaxy will not allow a warrior like you to remain in the shadows." Marcus studied him carefully. Xylar had changed since their last encounter. His movements were sharper, more precise, and he was accompanied by a squad of elite mercenaries who had trained specifically to counter human combat techniques. Marcus could feel their confidence radiating, but it would not last. Confidence was fragile when faced with experience. Marcus had fought wars that spanned galaxies, and every instinct he had learned was alive and alert. "You came here," Marcus said quietly, his voice carrying across the bar, calm and unflinching. "Do you want to fight, or are you here to negotiate?" Xylar's single eye glinted with a mixture of calculation and disdain. "You know the answer. Surrender the crystal, and perhaps I let you walk out of here alive." Marcus's gaze shifted toward the small alcove where the child slept, clutching the energy crystal. He had no intention of letting it fall into the wrong hands. "Not a chance," he replied. "You leave now, or you will face me." The alien mercenaries hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to do. Marcus could see their subtle gestures, the small signals passing between them. They had trained for this, studied him from a distance, but they had never faced him in person. The difference between theory and reality would soon become painfully clear. Without warning, Xylar activated a device on his wrist, and the room was bathed in a sudden pulse of energy. Lights flickered, tables trembled, and alien patrons screamed as the force wave spread through the bar. Marcus braced himself, rolling under the counter with a speed that surprised even the most trained mercenary. He grabbed a bottle, hurling it with perfect aim to disable one soldier before they even realized what had happened. He emerged from behind the counter in a fluid motion, kicking aside a table and using it as a barrier. Each movement was precise, tactical, and lethal without causing unnecessary harm. The mercenaries struck, but Marcus anticipated every attack, redirecting their energy, disarming them, and using the environment as a weapon. Lights shattered, drinks spilled, and the bar became a battlefield. Yet Marcus remained calm, a force of control amid chaos. Xylar moved closer, and Marcus adjusted his strategy. The hunter was fast, cunning, and relentless, but Marcus had faced adversaries who anticipated his moves, who calculated every outcome. With a flick of his wrist, he disarmed Xylar's energy pistols and sent him stumbling back with a precise strike to the shoulder. The mercenaries paused, unsure how to proceed, and that hesitation was all Marcus needed. He pressed forward, using the bar's layout to his advantage. Overhead lights hung low, and he pulled a wire to bring one down onto an approaching mercenary, trapping him. Another soldier rushed forward, and Marcus sidestepped, tripping him with a well-timed sweep of his leg. Every movement flowed into the next, a sequence of action and reaction that left the attackers disoriented and defeated. The child awoke, frightened, but Marcus gestured for it to stay behind the counter. "Stay close," he whispered, though the words were meant more for himself than for the child. Protecting the innocent was as instinctive as breathing. The child's small, shimmering wings quivered, but it obeyed, trusting the calm human who had already saved it once. Outside the bar, alarms sounded across the spaceport. Xylar had activated a remote signal, calling for reinforcements. Marcus's eyes narrowed. He had expected this. The galaxy moved slowly compared to the speed of his mind. He needed to end the fight quickly, or the incoming forces would turn the bar into a massacre. He drew a concealed blade from beneath the counter, its edge gleaming under the neon lights. With precision, he disarmed another mercenary, using the momentum to knock two more into each other. Each action was controlled, measured, and devastating. The alien guards who had once ignored him now watched in awe and fear as Marcus demonstrated a level of skill they had never imagined possible in a human. Xylar recovered and lunged, but Marcus was faster. He sidestepped, using a fluid motion to throw Xylar into a stack of tables, the crash echoing across the room. "Enough games," Marcus said, voice low but commanding. "Leave, or face consequences." The mercenaries hesitated, and Xylar hissed through clenched teeth. "You are formidable, human, but you cannot stop the galaxy. They will come for you." Marcus's expression remained calm. "Let them come," he replied. "I have survived worse." The remaining mercenaries, seeing their leader incapacitated and the human unyielding, retreated, vanishing into the night. Xylar slumped against the tables, breathing heavily, his single eye still fixed on Marcus. He had underestimated the human warrior, and now he would live to regret it. Marcus cleaned his blade and returned it beneath the counter, resuming his role as bartender. Patrons emerged from hiding, whispering among themselves. Alien guards approached cautiously, still unsure how to respond to a human who had just neutralized an entire squad of elite mercenaries. Marcus simply nodded at them, calm and composed, as if nothing had happened. The child approached, holding the energy crystal tightly. Marcus crouched, taking it and examining the small cube. Its energy signature was intact, and it hummed faintly, as though responding to his presence. He tucked it safely beneath the counter, hidden from view. Whoever sought this crystal would find that Marcus was already several steps ahead. He glanced toward the spaceport outside. Ships continued to land and depart, oblivious to the battle that had unfolded within the bar. The galaxy was vast, and enemies were many, but Marcus had a strategy. Observation, anticipation, and decisive action had always kept him alive. They would continue to do so. Yet he knew this was only the beginning. Xylar would return, and with him, more hunters, more mercenaries, more forces determined to capture or destroy the human warrior. Marcus could feel the tension building, a storm forming on the horizon, but he welcomed it. Conflict was his domain. Chaos was his ally. And above all, he was ready. The bar settled into an uneasy calm. Patrons whispered stories of the human who moved like a shadow and fought like a storm. Alien guards who had once ignored him now regarded him with caution and respect. Marcus returned to his duties, pouring drinks, wiping tables, and scanning the room with sharp, observant eyes. Every sound, every movement, every subtle gesture was noted, catalogued, and analyzed. He was ready for whatever came next. Night deepened over the spaceport, and the neon lights reflected off the wet streets. Ships took off into the void, carrying goods, information, and the whispers of a legend in the making. Inside the bar, Marcus continued his work, calm, vigilant, and prepared. The galaxy knew his name now, or, at least, the shadow of it. Stories would follow him, rumors would spread, and enemies would come. But Marcus would remain a constant, a force that moved unseen yet struck with precision, a protector of the innocent, and a nightmare to those who sought to exploit them. He paused briefly, glancing at the child. "You're safe," he said softly. "For now. But remember, the galaxy is not kind to those who are weak." The child nodded, though it did not fully understand, and returned to its corner. Marcus straightened, scanning the bar once more. The storm was coming, larger and more dangerous than anything before. Xylar would return, stronger allies would appear, and the hunt for the crystal would escalate. Marcus knew this, and he welcomed it. He was not just a bartender. He was a warrior. He was Earth's most feared human, and he would show the galaxy exactly why. He poured himself a drink, savoring the quiet before the next wave of chaos. Behind the counter, Marcus remained calm, patient, and ready. The galaxy might try to overwhelm him, but he had faced worse, and survived. And when the next threat came, they would learn the hard way that a human warrior could not be ignored, underestimated, or defeated easily. The night stretched on, but Marcus remained vigilant, a silent guardian behind the bar. He did not need recognition, fame, or reward. His duty was simple: protect, survive, and prepare. And in a galaxy filled with unpredictable dangers, that was enough. The first battle of many had been won, but the war for the crystal, and for Marcus himself, was only beginning. The galaxy was waking up to his name. Whispers had spread across star systems, carried on smugglers, traders, and even spies. The human bartender on Varan. 9, they said. The one who fights like a storm. The one who cannot be stopped. Marcus, behind his bar, remained calm, but inside, he knew the storm was no longer distant. It had arrived. The alien guards who had once ignored him now stood taller, keeping careful watch. Patrons gave him wide space, their eyes wary but respectful. Even Xylar's retreating shadow lingered in the corners of the galaxy, preparing for a return. Marcus understood that he had entered a new phase. He could no longer remain a quiet observer. His identity as Earth's most feared warrior was no longer a secret. It was a tool, a weapon, and a responsibility. A message arrived in the form of a shimmering hologram projected onto the wall of the bar. It was an envoy from the Andari's Council, a coalition of alien species known for their influence over several star systems. Their message was simple, direct, and unmistakable. They had heard of him. They wanted him to join them, not as a soldier, not as a pawn, but as a strategist, a protector, a human with the skills to tip the balance of interstellar power. Marcus studied the hologram carefully. Joining them would give him allies, resources, and protection, but it would also draw him fully into the galaxy's conflicts. He had spent years avoiding attention, but now he realized that avoidance was no longer an option. The galaxy needed him, and he could not refuse. He poured himself a drink, swirling the amber liquid and watching the lights reflect off the glass. His hands were steady, his mind calm, but his thoughts were sharp. The child who had clung to the energy crystal slept quietly in a corner, oblivious to the political and military machinations now reaching toward the bar. Marcus knew he needed to protect more than just himself. He needed to protect innocence, strategy, and balance in a galaxy that too often rewarded the ruthless. Before he could respond to the hologram, the doors of the bar slid open again. This time it was not a single threat, but a delegation. Representatives of various factions who had come to see the human warrior for themselves. Some carried weapons, others carried scrolls of negotiation. They were cautious, curious, and respectful. Marcus did not flinch. He had faced armies, assassins, and bounty hunters. Now he would face diplomats, traders, and leaders, all trying to understand what a human could do. He moved among them with deliberate grace, pouring drinks for those who would sit and gesturing toward empty chairs for those who preferred to stand. His calm demeanor was magnetic. Tension eased in his presence, though unease remained. Every gesture, every word, every glance was measured. Marcus was no longer hiding. One of the delegates, a tall, silver-scaled alien with 4 eyes and a voice like chimes, spoke first. "We have heard of your deeds," it said. "Entire fleets defeated, mercenaries overpowered." Xylar himself bested. "Tell us, human, why do you hide behind a bar? Hiding is easier than fighting, but the galaxy is rarely quiet." "I cannot avoid what comes to me." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "If I am to protect, I must understand the full picture." Strategy is more than combat. It is vision, timing, and the courage to act when others hesitate. The delegates murmured among themselves. They had come expecting a warrior, but they found a leader. Marcus's reputation had preceded him, but they now understood that his true strength was not only in his skill, but in his mind, in his ability to see the threads of conflict before they wove themselves into chaos. Suddenly, the holographic message returned, this time with urgency. Red Claw Syndicate reinforcements had located the bar. They were not sending scouts, they were sending fleets. Marcus's eyes narrowed. The calm before had ended. The storm had arrived in full force. He moved quickly, speaking to the delegates. "You need to evacuate the innocents first. Patrons, families, anyone not involved. The rest of us will handle the immediate threat." His voice was firm, commanding, but not cruel. The aliens understood immediately and began moving people toward exits and transport shuttles. Marcus returned behind the bar, scanning the layout. He had anticipated a direct attack, but the fleets approaching were clever, coordinated, and deadly. He would need to turn the bar into a stronghold, a battlefield designed for defense, using every detail at his disposal. Tables became barricades, chairs turned into traps, and the placement of lights and sound created confusion for the invaders. Every movement was intentional, every decision tactical. The first wave arrived, dropping onto the landing platform just outside the bar. Marcus stepped forward, blade in hand, moving with fluid speed. One soldier charged. Marcus sidestepped, using his momentum to throw him into another. Another soldier fired, and Marcus rolled, coming up behind a pillar to strike with lethal precision. Every motion was controlled, calculated, unstoppable. Inside the bar, Xylar returned with a squad of his deadliest mercenaries. Marcus met them head-on, blocking, striking, and redirecting attacks. Every soldier who thought they could overpower him learned quickly that he was beyond any standard combat technique. He moved like a storm, unpredictable, precise, and deadly. The delegates watched from a protected area, witnessing firsthand why Marcus had been called Earth's most feared warrior. The human did not rely on brute strength alone. He used strategy, psychology, and the environment to his advantage. Each enemy he faced was neutralized with efficiency. Their momentum turned against them, their confidence shattered. Outside, the Red Claw reinforcements had brought small, armored vehicles. Marcus knew their weakness. He set traps, rigged the environment with minimal but effective measures, and turned the bar into a fortress. When the vehicles moved forward, small charges and tactical strikes disabled them without significant collateral damage. The invading soldiers panicked, retreating in disarray. Xylar realized the tide had turned. He activated a high-energy pulse, hoping to overwhelm Marcus. But Marcus anticipated it, diving under cover and using the force against Xylar's own mercenaries. Sparks flew, panels shattered, and one by one the hunters fell, disarmed or incapacitated. The final moments were tense. Marcus stood in the center of the bar, blade in hand, surrounded by the last of the enemy. His breathing was calm, precise, and controlled. He did not need to fight them all. One gesture, one word, and they knew resistance was futile. The human warrior had become more than a fighter. He was a symbol, a force of nature, a protector who could not be underestimated. Xylar, defeated but alive, met Marcus's gaze. You. Unstoppable, he admitted, voice strained. The galaxy will come for you again and again. Let them come, he said. I will protect what matters, and I will not hide. The Red Claw Syndicate withdrew, their forces broken, and morale shattered. Outside, the fleets retreated, leaving the bar and its occupants safe for now. The delegates approached Marcus, offering thanks, respect, and an invitation. The Ondaris Council wanted him as a strategic advisor, a protector, a symbol of order in a galaxy prone to chaos. Marcus considered the offer carefully. It was more than he had ever wanted. Yet he understood the responsibility. He was not just a human warrior anymore. He was a force that could influence events, protect the innocent, and bring balance to a galaxy teetering on the edge of war. He returned to the counter, pouring a drink for the child, who had watched the entire battle in awe. You're safe now, he said softly. And there will be more challenges ahead. But we face them together. The child nodded, eyes wide, and Marcus allowed himself a faint smile. The alien guards, once dismissive and indifferent, now looked at him with respect and caution. Patrons whispered among themselves, telling stories of the human who had defended them with unmatched skill, strategy, and courage. Marcus did not need their approval. He had long ago learned that recognition was temporary, but he understood its value. It was a sign that his actions mattered, that he could make a difference. As night settled over Voren, 9, the neon lights reflecting off the wet streets, Marcus stood behind his bar. His calm demeanor remained, but his mind was alert, already calculating, already planning. The galaxy knew his name, and they would continue to test him. But Marcus was ready. He was Earth's most feared warrior, a protector, and now a leader. The storm had come, but it had not broken him. It had sharpened him, tested him, and proven that even a single human could stand against overwhelming odds. He would never be an ordinary bartender again. He was a guardian, a strategist, and a warrior whose legend would spread across the stars. Marcus glanced at the horizon, where ships moved across the sky, some carrying threats, some carrying allies. He took a deep breath, steady and calm. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and unpredictable, but he would face it. Always ready, always vigilant, and always human. The bar on Voron 9 would remain his base, his refuge, and his stage. Patrons would come and go, alien guards would watch, and stories would be told. But behind the counter, Marcus was no longer just a bartender. He was a force that could not be ignored, a warrior who had chosen to protect rather than destroy, and a symbol of what humanity could achieve when courage, skill, and intelligence met opportunity. And so he waited, prepared for whatever came next, knowing that the galaxy had finally met the human who could not be underestimated, outsmarted, or defeated. The legend of Marcus, Earth's most feared warrior, was only beginning.